we start with chilling revelations about the GOP's official new agenda, hatched behind closed doors, and how it echoes extreme Trump policies his allies have sought to downplay. Today, for the first time, the RNC released details of its new 2024 party platform. It will be voted on and officially adopted next week at the Republican convention. But Trump is already publicly praising it, and there's a reason why. As the New York Times puts it today, the Republican platform could read like a Trump rally. It's a document that reads less like a list of policy proposals and more like the teleprompter at a Trump rally. The Washington Post describing it as, quote, a full Trump takeover of the party. The platform promises the mass deportations of millions and proposes ending the Department of Education, echoing several of the pillars of another conservative roadmap, the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. These policies are so alarming to most Americans that Donald Trump has sought to distance himself from Project 2025 in recent days, claiming at various times that he's never heard of the blueprint for his potential second term and that he has nothing to do with any of the people involved, which would be a lot more believable if dozens of them had not worked in his own administration, or if he wasn't on camera praising the Heritage Foundation and several of the authors of Project 2025 by name.
We need the help of the Heritage Foundation.
We're delighted to be joined on this occasion by Acting Director Ross Vogt, who has really done a fantastic job.
President Trump confirmed that he did intend to nominate Steve Moore for that spot.
We'll be nominating Mr. Moore for the Fed. You know who I'm talking about. So he's going to be great on the Fed.
John McEntee. Now, he might not be as familiar to you. It's possible that name rings a bell. He was so powerful inside the Trump White House, he has been called the deputy president.
Taken together, the RNC platform and Project 2025 embrace an enormous expansion of presidential power and complete submission to the whims and threats of Donald Trump personally. A stance that, when coupled with last week's Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, have some veteran Justice Department officials sounding the alarm about DOJ weaponization in a second Trump term. And Trump's allies, including VP contender J.D. Vance and former Assistant Attorney General Jeff Clark, are all but vowing revenge.
I think what Donald Trump is simply saying is we ought to investigate the prior administration. I think Donald Trump saying, look, let's do the basic work of investigating wrongdoing is a totally reasonable thing for him to do.
He can investigate whom he sees fit to investigate, working with the Justice Department, and he can prosecute whom he sees fit to prosecute.
Joining me now is Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney, MSNBC legal analyst, and a senior fellow with the Brennan Center, and Tara Setmayer, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project and former Republican communications director. My thanks to both of you for getting us started tonight. Tara, I want to get, what was your first reaction when you read that new GOP 2024 platform? I mean, the only things that were missing, in my opinion, were promises for candy bar machines and sodas in the cafeteria. And I think it's an insult to voters if they think that this platform is not just Project 2025 and Agenda 47, which is President Trump or former President Trump's plans for when he takes office again, if he makes it there.
Yeah, I mean, I've been paying attention to Project 2025 for some time. I mean, when I was a Republican, I remember that the platform committee used to be things like lower taxes, strong national security, smaller government, not things like this. This is very, very scary stuff. I've been to 6 Republican conventions, and the idea that they kept out abortion and marriage was very curious to me, because we know behind the scenes there was a fight about that, because the Trump campaign knows this is where they are weakest when it comes to the public knowing what their plans are. Project 2025 is the vehicle. And that's why I co-founded the Seneca Project, why we are focusing on making sure women understand what's at stake in this election, particularly right-of-center women who are looking at the Republican Party going, I don't recognize this party. What do you mean you want to get rid of no-fault divorce? What do you mean you're attacking IVF? What do you mean you want to criminalize my health care? What do you mean you want my daughters to have less rights than I did? This is very dangerous stuff. And the fact that Trump and his allies are trying to act like they don't know what it is, they're trying to coffee boy Project 2025, is absurd. Groups like mine, like the Seneca Project, are going to make sure that they can't whitewash history. We see you. We know what you have said and done. We have an ad out today that talks about this. We call it Pay Attention, because people need to pay attention to what they are saying. You don't have to believe us. It's coming out of their mouths. They don't think women should have a right to vote. They don't think that women should have a right to birth control. They think women are stupid and past their prime if they're not in their prime fertile years, like Charlie Kirk said. I mean, this is real. This is the enemy. This is what we're fighting against. And this is not democratic at all. It's a march toward fascism. And the more that the American people know this, particularly women, because for us, for those of us right now, this is life or death for us. And we're marching towards something that looks like the Handmaid's Tale. All three of us will be on the wall if they want Project 2025 is successful and Donald Trump wins in November. That's why we have to keep our eye on the prize. What's happening with the Democrats, the circular firing squad, has to stop. This is not about a personality. It is about an administration. It's about the stability of our government. And it's about whether you want to make an investment in making sure that the democracy remains and that we all have the freedoms that we know and love and what we just celebrated on July 4th. That's the choice. It's a binary choice in November.
You know, Joyce, Tara obviously makes a compelling argument as to why we have to protect democracy. I want to ask you through a legal lens, when you read something like this GOP platform, a party lining up behind mass deportation, eradicating federal agencies, weaponizing the DOJ, jailing political opponents, do you fear for what is left of the rule of law?
So, look, I think we would be naive not to have that fear. And, Katie, you played a segment that featured Jeff Clark. Jeff Clark, for those who've forgotten, was a presidentially appointed, Senate-confirmed Department of Justice employee during the Trump administration. He ran the Environment and Natural Resources Division. And it is Clark who became prominent after he was introduced by a congressman to Donald Trump. And he agreed to use the Justice Department to push forward the fake election scheme, to say that there were fraud problems in the election. What we heard Clark saying in those clips you played was that it was up to Donald Trump to decide who he wanted to prosecute. And as a presidentially appointed, Senate-confirmed Justice Department official, he absolutely knows that that's not true. In fact, that's the opposite of the way the rule of law works in this country. We don't let presidents weaponize the Justice Department. We don't let them use the criminal justice system to punish their enemies and protect their friends. Career prosecutors make decisions based on the law and the facts. They go through grand juries. They go to trial juries. That's how this system has worked. And this is the first time in our nation's history we have heard a plan to alter it. It's in Project 2025. It's in this Republican platform that we've seen. We're hearing it in these voices who are talking about going after prosecutors who didn't target Donald Trump. Instead, they used the normal criminal process, again, using grand juries in investigative procedures, presenting their cases in front of jurors, convicting in Manhattan, as we saw recently in that state prosecution. Republicans here in this platform are suggesting the end of all of that and the end of much of the rule of law as we've known it.
You know, Tara, MAGA figures are embracing Project 2025, a lot of it being enshrined in that GOP platform, which we know Donald Trump approves. But in the same breath, as you noted, Trump and his allies, they're trying to distance him from Project 2025. Take a quick listen to Marco Rubio from the Sunday shows.
Think tanks do think tank stuff. They come up with ideas. They say things. I like Heritage Foundation. I agree with some of the things they stand for, but there's a bunch of scholars and people that turn around and work on different projects. But our candidate for president is Donald Trump.
Is that what Project 2025 is? Is it ideological lunacy?
No, I think it's the work of a think tank, of a center-right think tank.
I mean, Tara, look, this platform is in all caps, and a lot of us on social media have been mocking it. It looks like it was written by a third grader, although that's an insult, I think, with a crayon, the way that it's presented. And yet, if you look at what was released, they actually say, "We will make America great again." It is a total embracing of the mantra of Donald Trump. But for me, it wasn't just J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. It's been others, including Donald Trump himself, Tara. I mean, it's the gaslighting for me. Again, it's an insult to Americans and American voters if they think that we won't understand that they are all one and the same.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's up to us when we use these platforms to make sure the American people are informed. That is the number one thing. We cannot have an uninformed public, because if you do, then they are easily manipulated into believing the BS that's coming out of Trump's mouth. Trump is a lying liar who lies. We've demonstrated that. We see him demonstrate that every single day. So all of a sudden we're supposed to be like, oh, he denounced Project 2025. Oh, we believe him. No, he's full of it, and we know it. 80% of the authors of Project 2025, this manifesto, it's almost 1,000 pages, worked in the Trump administration or are close allies of Donald Trump. Don't believe me? Look it up, as Taraji Henson said. Look it up. These people are proud of it. They're more emboldened. You had the head of the Heritage Foundation talking about a second revolution that will be bloodless if the left cooperates, basically. What are we talking about here? We have a Supreme Court that has given carte blanche to the president to be a king. You have Kash Patel, who is out here talking about Project 2025 and Trump and using those levers to exact retribution on people. This needs to be spread far and wide so people understand. And like I said, specifically for women, we are the first people that they will come for when it comes to taking our rights away. And it's important for women to understand the stakes at that. You galvanize women, you save democracy. That's what we believe, because women have had enough. And the more they find out about their plans, the more women are going, no way in hell, not no, but hell no, not on our watch. And that's our goal. We have got to defeat MAGA in November at all costs. And Project 2025 should be the fuel that people need to see. They're laying out the agenda right in front of us. They're telling us what they're going to do. Believe them.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.